Welcome to the Expansive Astrology podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi! Welcome back to the Expansive Astrology podcast. This is episode 37, and I am so glad you're here. Today we are continuing the discussion, the exploration of Aquarius energy. And this time we're going to look at Aquarius energy through the lens of the tarot. So we'll be looking at the Star card, the Fool card, and the World card, as well as the Suit of Swords, and specifically the Page of Swords, which represents fixed air energy, and Aquarius is fixed air energy. So I have a lot to share with you today. I love this energy. And I love these cards. I love the message. It's like so inspiring to me. So especially looking at these cards through the lens of like Soul Tarot Theory by Lindsay Mack, which is largely like the skeleton of my entire framework of the tarot. When I read and when I teach, I am largely working from Lindsay Mack's Soul Tarot. And I reference that all the time. You know that. But it is so inspiring and so juicy. So I'm excited to share it with you. But first things first, I have a tarot reading, a collective tarot reading for the week for you. This is a 4-card check-in spread for the collective. So some of the things I say today might sound like I'm talking directly to you. It's so eerily accurate. Other things might not hit that close to home today. And so I encourage you to take what you need and leave the rest, and stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you over the week to come. Because if you're hearing this, I trust that you're meant to hear it. Now, first up this week, present for us, we have the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Air, Nurturer of Air, Nurturer of Swords. The Queen of Swords is present for us. And when we pull a court card, when a court card comes up in a reading, I like to look at it as an invitation to really step into that energy, to really embody the Queen of Swords for myself. Like, what does Melissa's brand of Queen of Swords look like? What does it mean for me to play dress up with the Queen of Swords, the Nurturer of Swords, Nurturer of Air? Once we've reached the Queen, we have kind of graduated past the Page and the Knight. So the Page is, it's Aquarius energy, but it's devoted. It's the student of the swords. It's the student who's like fresh out of the textbook, just totally devoted to the craft, might be a little young, might be a little new at this, but totally willing to like step forward into the world, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and just in devotion to the swords, in devotion to air energy. And then the Knight of Swords expands on that. They become a little more skilled, and the Knights are about how we move through the world, really bringing that out, you know. So the Knight of Swords is Gemini energy, which is really about like making connections, speaking, teaching, bringing magic from within to without, bringing it to the world. So the Queen has become proficient in what it means to be the Page and the Knight. And now we're in the Queen, cardinal air, where we have a kingdom. We rule. We really know how to use that air, how to use our swords. And Soul Tarot says that the Queen of Swords is about huge, massive, unmistakable profoundly sacred, massive boundaries. They mean what they say and say what they mean, and they expect others to do the same. Their use of air, their use of their voice is expertly managed, and they have like a massive boundary between their air and other air. The Queen of Swords is cautious and careful about what they let in. This energy is about using your voice even when it isn't pretty. It's about cultivating comfort with disappointing people and saying no. It's like clarity, it's leadership. It's tightening up on any leaky boundaries, maintaining balance by maintaining boundaries, saying things even when they're hard, and doing so with grace and tact and care, Some read this energy as kind of cold and harsh, and it might feel that way. And when you're playing dress up with the Queen of Swords, with the nurturer of swords, how do you want that to look? How can you establish and maintain boundaries? How can you disappoint people? How can you say no, maybe without being cold and harsh? It's a skill, right? It's a skill to say no. It's a skill to have boundaries. It's a skill to maintain them. And we can either do it in a passive way, or we can not do it at all, or we can get really harsh and aggressive, and it can be kind of like, fuck you. And there's always middle ground. There's always middle ground. And it shouldn't require you getting cold and harsh to have your boundaries respected, right? To have your needs and your voice, whatever it is, whatever you're saying. And so the Queen of Swords kind of has to learn some balance there, right? Like anytime where you are feeling unheard, or you feel like you do have to kind of get a little nasty or aggressive in order to be respected or heard, it's just really important to note, right? What does that tell you? Usually it's, either the other person is not respecting you and your voice and your needs, right? Or it might mean that you're not being as effective with your voice as you possibly can, right? Like something needs to change about how you're saying this. And that doesn't always have to mean, getting feisty or however you want to look at it. Like you can stay empowered, you can stay effective, you can be and you should be respected and taken seriously, even if you are approaching something serious from a warm, gentle, graceful place. And if you are being effective and warm and gentle and graceful, and if you are approaching these things in a way that you really can stand behind and feel proud of, and you're doing your best, and you are being healthy and using healthy skills, and it's still not being met correctly, like it's no longer a you problem. There's so much I could say about Queen of Swords, especially coming out of Mercury retrograde, where a massive part of what I teach in Retrograde Revival Guide is interpersonal effectiveness. So the Queen of Swords is very much interpersonal effectiveness. And this energy is present for us, supported by the Two of Wands, Two of Fire, which is a period of like building power, building fire. It's kind of like a lay low and wait energy. It's like a preparation phase type of energy. It's like I'm keeping the fire, stoking the fire, right? But kind of just keeping things at a rolling boil. So that reaffirms my emphasis on, in reading the Queen of Swords, is like maybe a warning or a message to like make sure that we're not being over the top or too aggressive, too feisty with our Queen of Swords work. Like, you don't want to add too much fire to that air. Just enough, just enough fire to keep you motivated, to keep things going, to keep you warm. Two of Wands is also feeling really relevant to me personally, and maybe you'll have to let me know if I'm like reading too much into it or if I'm just connecting it to my own life a little too much. But don't people say like January is like 1,000 days long? Doesn't it feel like that every year? Like, it really feels so long. And, in my neck of the woods, it's like snowing weekly. It's, cold, it's winter, it's still dark, but the sun is the days are starting to get longer. Every day they get like a minute longer. I've been keeping track. And also I'm pregnant. So like I'm definitely in this very like wintering, hibernating, I'm exhausted, I can only do so much kind of phase right now. So I don't know how much of it is the pregnancy and how much of it is just like the time of year and the weather, right? But Two of Wands is really feeling like this like urge to want to go and want to do more, right? But maybe it's not quite time yet. Maybe it's still a preparation phase. We're still kind of gathering energy, gathering our resources, building up material, gestating, if you will. It's like quiet preparation, patience, like trusting and waiting, and trusting that more will come in time. But I really like in the Smith Rider Waite illustrations that the Two of Wands shows a person apparently about to embark on a new journey, and they have one wand on either side of them, and they are holding a globe. They're studying a globe before they take off on some journey. And then in the Three of Wands, it's like that globe has transformed into a third wand. I think that progression is very meaningful. I think it represents the way that preparation and the studying and the patience and the trust and the discernment transforms into energy and power, fire. So that patience, that trust, that devotion, that discernment, the wise use of fire energy is really supporting our work as the Queen of Swords this week. Our lesson for the week is the 8 of Cups, which in a phrase, it represents empowered choice. It represents deepening alignment. It represents following, trusting our heart, following our internal call, wherever that may take us. What we're learning this week is trust in our path. It feels kind of like a cousin of Fool energy. Maybe that'll resonate for you. The 8 of Cups is about walking away from something, walking towards something, walking into the unknown. Trust. And the thing about the 8 of Cups is that it transforms us, right? We're leaving something behind. There's some sacrifice or a choice, a very intentional choice to go where we're going, to make the move that we're going to make. And the cups represent like deepening our relationship with our heart. So really this is about aligning our path with our heart more truly, more fully. In Pamela Coleman Smith iteration of the 8 of Cups, we see a person walking into the dead of night with only the moon to guide them, and they're walking away from a stack of 8 giant golden shiny cups. Cups that they have been collecting their whole life. They almost have a whole pyramid of these cups, and they are making the choice to walk away from them. I always imagine that some of those cups were hand-me-downs. Most of them were carefully curated. They've been collecting these cups just the way their mother told them to, and the way their grandmother told their mother to. You know, they've been doing all the right things, collecting these cups. They almost have a whole stack, and they're choosing to walk away. And that's really important and significant, right? It's about having the courage to leave behind what isn't working, what isn't aligned, what isn't resonating with your heart in a really full, true way. Even if you've been working on it forever, even if you've been doing it just right, even if it has been working for you up until today, right? Can you have the courage to move into what would be more true? We're learning alignment with the heart. And our anchor for the week is really backing up that message. We have the 10 of Swords, which is sort of like a mini death card. The 10 of Swords is about letting what's done be done. It's about letting what is dead be dead. How much more dead does it have to be? How much worse does it have to get before you'll make a move? Before you'll step into the Queen of Swords and state the boundary, or before you'll step into the 8 of Cups and walk away. How much worse does it have to get? How dead does it really have to be? And the swords represent like our brain chemistry, and the 10 of Swords might be a reminder that like we can, how much power our mind has really, and that we can kind of change how we're looking at things. And that can unfold in a couple different ways, right? Maybe it means that you're not acknowledging how very dead this thing is. Or on the other hand, is your mind painting a picture of disaster? Is it really, is it that bad? Is it that dead? Or is your brain kind of adding swords to the situation that don't really need to be there, you know? The sword cards tend to show up less around what is actually happening and what is truly present, and they more so show up around what we think is happening and how it feels it's all unfolding. They're really dramatic. They're very dramatic cards. And if that's not your brain, I mean, it's my brain, right? The brain can be really dramatic. And I keep quoting Marianne Williamson these last couple of weeks. This one phrase that she says in The Law of Divine Compensation. She talks about how faith is not just a theological principle. It's like a muscle. It's like a function of the mind, of the spirit. And she says, I've been saying this so often lately, I might even be able to quote it verbatim. She says, with every attitude, we are displaying faith. Either faith in what could go right or faith in what could go wrong. We tend to have much more faith in the possibility of disaster rather than the possibility of miracles. And wow, was I cocky, because that absolutely was not verbatim. But pretty close. And I feel like that is kind of what we learn in the Suit of Swords, and like especially in the 10 of Swords card. Is it as bad as your brain is making it out to seem? Are there as many swords here as you think there are? Is it truly beyond repair? And that's what you're invited to figure out in the 10 of Swords. But the 10 of Swords as an anchor is reminding you to like keep your brain in check, to practice that wisdom and that discernment of knowing when your brain is just adding swords, when your thoughts are just adding swords to the situation, and knowing when enough is enough. You know, if your brain is constantly throwing swords at the situation, maybe that's, that's data for you too. That's important for you to know too. Like, why might that be happening? Is it because this thing is fucking dead and it is time to walk away? Or does something else need to be tended to? You know, I can't possibly answer that for you, but it's our anchor for this week. Kind of an ambiguous anchor. But really it's about figuring out a new way to relate to the brain, a new, more empowered way of relating to our swords or relating to whatever is in front of us, right? A new, more empowered way of relating to our thinking, letting go of what isn't working, you know? And that's our tarot reading for the week. I hope it feels helpful for you, anchoring for you as we move throughout the week. Now for the Expansive Astrology. Let's talk about Aquarius. Let's dive deeper. I've titled this week's episode Reclaiming Foolishness. But we're going to start with the star. So Lindsay Mack says that the star card is the Aquarius card. And she calls this card the nervous system healer of the tarot. It is about how we show up, how we cope with the aftermath of the Tower card. And it's no joke. It's no joke. We call in the star when we are ready to unpack and heal shit. This represents a radical experience where we work through healing ourselves so deeply that we're left with so much space and clarity that then we can be the water bearer. We can be of service for the collective. The star is about rest, restoration, like true rest, right? Restorative rest. It's healing things up. It throws away any sort of idea that we should be past this, or it should be easier, or that this shouldn't be a problem for me. I know better. I've healed past this. Like, it kind of throws that away and invites us into such a spacious healing, such a deep and accepting and messy sort of place that there's just such an allowance for all of it, right? There's an allowance for the mess. It's not about moving past it. It's about healing it. It's about being in that process of healing. And we all know the ways that the universe will keep throwing shit in our face until you've learned it, right? Again and again and again, we will be faced with the things that we need to learn until they're learned. So those things that we need to heal past will show up again and again and again and again, unless and until we finally heal past the thing. They will show up again and again and again and again, not only in our own lifetime, but like generationally, right? Until we do the healing work. And then once we heal past the thing, there's so much more space to access our knowledge and our ability to help others heal, our ability to show up with the gifts we're meant to be showing up with. But diving in and doing that work, raw, humble, and vulnerable, not rushing past it, just allowing it, deep, deep, true healing, taking the space and the time to do that, like, gives space and time to give that, you know? And Aquarius is so community focused. It's so other focused. But in the star, we're opening the heart, nurturing, healing, surrendering to healing. We're remembering to heal ourselves, which will permission others to heal themselves. The tower came in and helped to knock away any structures that we were building on unsound foundation, so that we can tend to the foundation, so that we can tend to the roots. It reveals something so that we can fix it. And now the star is here to help us do that work, that radical self-healing, in the most full way we possibly can. The tower clears it off, and the star meets us at ground zero. And when we're doing that kind of gentle, loving, full, deep, true healing work at ground fucking zero, there is no gaslighting ourselves. There is no rushing past it. There is no, I should be over this by now. This shouldn't be a problem for me. I should be past this. I am regressing 2 steps back. I shouldn't need to heal. None of that. And this work, this healing, giving ourselves that space is worth prioritizing. Doing the healing helps prevent scar tissue, It helps prevent the blockages. It helps prevent the contraction. It allows us to find a space where we're no longer stuck and struggling and pestered by the old shit. The healing allows us to move past what may have happened in the tower and carry on, where we're no longer pestered by whatever was taking up that space or energy or time. It's a necessary step in completing the cycle, so we don't have to learn and relearn and relearn and relearn and keep hanging out in the same shit. It's one of the deepest ways that we really get to know ourselves is to heal those wounds, to prioritize that space and that time, to humbly, fully, truly, in the most raw form, to do the work. In the Smith Rider-Waite star card, we see a naked person supported by the earth and the water, taking water and giving it back to the land at the same time, which is very Aquarius style, And next week we'll be talking a lot about authenticity. I think doing this healing work, clearing up that scar tissue, finding that spaciousness, learning ourselves through doing that healing work and not shying away from it, not gaslighting ourselves out of it or away from it. It allows you to know yourself so fully that that authenticity may come a little more naturally, Many people will pull the star card and really emphasize how it's about shining, stepping forward and shining. I really feel like Soul Tarot describes how we can do that. Now, the Fool card, which is ruled by Uranus, which is why we're talking about it today. Uranus rules Aquarius. The Fool is traditionally taught as a new beginning. It's commonly seen as a symbol that we're about to leap into some new endeavor and to be careful not to be too foolish or naive. Really, this card is about leaping into a new beginning and so much more than that. This whole thing we're doing here is the Fool's journey. The Fool is really a part of the entire spiral of the major arcana. This card is about saying yes to the soul, being ourselves no matter what. The Fool helps us in breaking down the illusion that life is predictable and stable and solid. It teaches us how life unfolds in a spiral. It is not linear, and the ground where we feel the safest, where we feel we're leaping off from doesn't even actually exist in the first place. The Fool helps us in undoing our relationship with unpredictability, because it's essentially the soul itself. It helps to remind us that we are both of this world and not of this world, that we are massive, expansive, magical souls who are shrunk into this limited human experience. We are capable of so much, and we shrink ourselves down, and society shrinks us down, and we're experiencing this human existence full of limitations and taxes and illness and tragedy. The Fool reminds us that we are a soul within a body. Magic within a body, a dream within a body, that you are a dream within a body. Ugh, I love that. And that which limits us is limited. Our soul, the Fool, understands the value of discomfort. The Fool understands that we become what we are by growing through what we're handed. Discomfort is a signal of growth, expansion, and contraction is a signal that dilation is happening. The Fool, in some ways, embodies beginner's mind. Practice looking at the world through the eyes of a child, as if everything is new, as if everything is limitless. Everything is worth taking in and asking about and exploring. There is so much value in looking at the world through the eyes of a child. We call children magical for a reason. The Fool is not about being foolish. It's not about being naive or unwise as we follow our yeses and explore the world from a soul-centered place. The rest of the world might think so, and that's okay. Because anytime we're making the choice to live from a soul-centered place, we're going to risk being seen as foolish to the rest of the world. To the normies out there, to those who play it safe. We might even question if we're being foolish, right? That's a natural function. Anytime we choose the soul and doubt the brain brings us into questioning or doubt or criticism about those choices we're making. It's to be expected. And it doesn't mean we're making the wrong choice or being foolish. Trust the soul. Doubt the brain. Aquarius cannot help it. It cannot resist being what it is. It knows it has to be what it is. It has to. It can't help it. Tap into that. Tap into that sense that you have no choice. You have to be who and what you are. Can you be that more fully? Can you be that more foolly? More foolishly? Following the call. Again and again and again. And then we have the World card, ruled by Saturn. The World card is the final card in the major arcana. The Fool is card 0, and the World card is that last card. This card is a profound rebirth. It's the end of a cycle, a graduation into something new. whether we feel complete or not, whether we even know what's to come or not. The world card is when we're ready to complete something and move into something new, clearing something away. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be external. It can be very subtle and simple. The world card is the result of us aligning more fully with ourselves, with our guides, with the truth. It's what happens when we embrace a more authentic way of showing up, embracing a more organic, less egoic way of moving through the world. It's when we've completed a fool's journey in a way. It's the result of being the fool. It's the result of leaning into our experiences, following the call, aligning with our soul, with our foolish self, again and again and again, in all experiences, through all lessons. The fool moves through all of these cards and then graduates in the world card. The world card represents the culmination of that work, of that healing, of that authenticity, of that surrender and bravery and trust, And Aquarius is air energy. So I want to talk about the entire suit of swords, which is air energy, and it can be really intense. It represents the suit of swords, represents the mind, brain chemistry, and communication. There's always movement happening in air energy. There's always something to learn or do or explore or some way to grow, something to share. There's always some way to grow in air energy. And the suit of swords invites us to befriend our brain, to befriend our brain chemistry, to get really curious about our thinking and the ways our brain works so that we can stop identifying so much with our thoughts, so that we can drive the car with the brain in the back seat and really let the fool take the wheel. This is where we learn that our thoughts and beliefs are not necessarily the truth, that feelings are not facts. In the suit of swords, we get many opportunities to learn that the story that the brain tells us is often much worse than reality. And we have a responsibility to check our narratives. And, doing so can liberate us from those very fucking narratives. I mentioned this in the collective tarot reading, that each sword card is kind of depicting the story of how horrible a thing might be. And it's not necessarily the truth. That's why reading the 10 of Swords is kind of tricky when it comes up as an anchor, because I don't know what it's trying to tell you, right? But it is a reminder that the story our brain is telling about the thing, the story our brain is telling about how many swords are in our back, that story might just be a story in our head. It might not be true. It might feel like there's 10 fucking swords in your back, when really there's just 2, which is still terrible. It's still really painful, not ideal to have 2 swords in your back, right? But it's not 10. And sometimes the brain can be like, oh my God, I'm going to die from this. When really, it's just a scratch, maybe. And one of the most liberating things that Lindsay Mack taught me is that the brain is a predator. It really behaves like a predator. It doesn't want us to evolve. It wants us feeling the same. It wants us to be stuck. It wants us to answer only to it. The brain doesn't want us to get outside help or opinions. It doesn't want us to do healthy things. It doesn't want us to evolve. It wants to keep us safe It wants to keep us in the same spot. It wants to keep us chained where we are. And it does that by bringing us into all sorts of stories. They can't help you. That won't help. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't share that. You share too much. You need too much. That therapy session, that tarot session, that breathwork session, the massage, the bath, the journaling, those things won't help you. There's much better things to do. Don't tell your therapist or your best friend or your mom or your husband what you're thinking about them or what you're thinking about yourself. They'll just lie to you anyway. You take up too much space. You're a burden. Don't ask them. You need to do it yourself. Oh, you suck. Right? It's like you have to do all of this by yourself. And then it's like, oh my God, I suck at doing this by myself. Ugh. The brain can be very predatory. It keeps us away from things that would be helpful and good. And we can learn that. We can learn its function and kind of manage it, mitigate it, make choices despite it. Learning how to say, my brain is telling me that you hate me and I shouldn't talk to you ever again. Is that true? Because I would like to still talk to you, you know. My brain is inviting me to believe that you are burnt out on me and don't really like me all that much. Am I picking up on something there, or is my brain being an asshole? And the thing is that kind of contraction often happens when we are on the precipice of something really amazing and expansive and healthy and helpful and wonderful. The brain's tendency to be a predator really comes out when things are going well and we're about to expand into a little more foolishness, expand into our big, beautiful life. It's almost even a good sign when the brain is super fucking freaked out about something, because that says it's feeling really threatened and we get to question it. Trust the soul, doubt the brain. That doesn't mean don't listen. That doesn't mean don't heed the call, right? Your brain is also really smart. And we do take in messages from through the brain, via the brain, right? Obviously. I'm by no means saying that when the brain is really fucking freaked out about something, that means, oh, ignore it and move in the complete opposite direction because that must be what the soul is. No. Be careful. Be careful, right? The brain is also useful and helpful and adaptive. So it's not about not listening to that part of you, but it is about doubting it, you know? Now, the Page of Swords specifically, which is Aquarius energy, is about really being a student of that work. Really knowing not to buy into the brain's story that we have to stay small or we don't have enough or we don't know enough. The Page of Swords is willing to step forward and show up and serve. Aquarius style, you know? The Page of Swords inspires a question of what might be possible if we're willing to go just a little bit farther than what the brain says is comfortable. The Page of Swords is about stepping forward with that fullness and that authenticity and that willingness, even if the brain is super freaked out, you know, even if it does feel new or a little risky. So I love to consider all of these cards as a whole, you know, the Star, the Fool, the World, the Page of Swords, this Aquarian team of superheroes here to help us heal ourselves so that we can heal the collective and show up really fully and bravely and no matter what. So that's Aquarius through the lens of the tarot. So good, right? I hope it feels helpful and inspiring to you as we continue to move through Aquarius season. Next week, I'm going to be really talking about authenticity and becoming more you. That's the working title. I don't know if I like it. We'll see what I end up naming it. But that's the topic for next week, right? Like becoming more fully ourselves, yourself. Also, a reminder that it's almost the end of the month, which means February tarot readings will be going out next week. So if you would like to get yourself a tarot reading for the month of February, and if you would like to support the podcast, the work that I'm doing here, and if you would like an all-access pass to my moon meetups, please consider joining the Meet Your Magic monthly membership, where you can get all of that and more for just $25 a month. I'm so beyond grateful to my members. It's been so fun to read for you each month and then kind of like watch from afar what unfolds throughout the month. It's been so much fun. I really love that I started this, and it is massively supportive to my work and allows me to carve out the time to do this. So I can't express enough gratitude for your support. And speaking of moon meetups, the next moon meetup will be on Sunday, February 5th, where we will be celebrating and talking about the full moon in Leo, which might just be one of my favorite full moons in the entire, in the whole year, in the whole lunar cycle. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'd love to see you there. You can find more information on my website. You know where to go. I will see you here next week to continue to explore Aquarius season and authenticity. I hope you have a wonderful week. Until then, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.